Hello and welcome to one and all. So we'll continue with the structure of Indian industry. We finished structure in terms of usage, that is the basic industries producing the consumer goods, and the industries producing the intermediate goods. Second is structure based on the type of ownership, public sector undertakings, private sector undertakings, and the joint sector undertakings, which we have finished. And the third structure based on the size of capital, we have finished the uh, mega industries, large industries, medium, small, and micro enterprises, and ancillary industries. And the next is the next one what we have is the cottage industries. So the cottage industries, so mostly these cottage industries, they are categorized under small scale industries. So they are categorized under small scale industry, but it is a home based industry. So mostly the family members themselves, they will work. So these small scale industries, but these industries are home based, that is they produce mostly home based products. Home based products, all the handicrafts, basket weaving, pottery, so all the handicrafts, and they're not the factory based. So because of this reason, no specification of capitals here. So since it is mostly home based product, so there is no specification of capital limit here, which we have in other categories. Okay, so there is no specifications of capital. And similar type of industry is the household industries. So there's not much of a difference between the cottage industries and household industries. If the cottage industries become slightly bigger, where they have to hire certain laborers, then that becomes a household industry. Cottage industry mostly run by the family members, but if if the business expands, where there is a necessity for them to hire laborers, then it becomes a household industry. See, some of the features of household industries is, these industries mostly cover the rural artisans or skilled craftsmen and technicians. And they can work in their own houses. They don't need a separate establishment. They can work in their own houses, especially if it requires less than 3,000 square feet space. Then they can carry on their work with their house itself. And very limited usage of power. In cottage industries, mostly they don't use power. Okay, so this one slightly different. They use less than 1 kilowatt power. They employ less than 5 workers. That's what. If at least normally cottage industries, no power, they can work from their family. Through the family members, and they don't need a hired workers. So the business slightly expands. So they have to use certain power when power is required, and they have to use certain labor force, and that too should be less than 5 workers. Then it becomes a household industry. And most of the these type of industries, they don't cause any pollution. So those are all the types of products that is manufactured by both by cottage industries as well as the household industries. So the handicrafts, toys, dolls, basket weaving, plastic, paper products, electronics, so pottery. So these are all the some of the commodities manufactured by the cottage industries and the household industries. Okay, so this is as per the structure by the size of capital. Then the next category of industries is based on the type of enterprises. Okay. Fourth one is the structure of industries. Structure by type of enterprises. So under that, the first one what we have is the public limited company. So don't get confused with the public sector enterprises. Public sector enterprise is different, public limited company is different. Okay, so the public limited company. So before I proceed, just want to make a thing. See, if the shares are floated to the general public, then that becomes a public limited company. Okay, and if it is not floated within the private individuals, then it becomes a, so this becomes the private limited company. And another this thing is public sector undertakings, they are government owned. Public limited company, here this public represents government in public sector undertakings. So this public represents the, refers to the government. Here in this public, here in this public limited company, this public refers to the general public. So don't get confused. Okay, that is a major difference. So then if the shares of the company is distributed, offered to the general public, then that company becomes a public limited company. Okay, even the, for example, the government companies are there. If the government companies are also, so the government companies can also float their shares to the general public. So then the government companies can be registered under the public limited company. Okay, even the private sector companies can also float their shares to the general public. So there is a difference. Just main thing what you have to understand is in public limited company, here the public refers to the general public. That means the shares or shares of the company is issued to the general public. Then that becomes a public limited company. In the public sector undertakings, that is the entirely it is owned by the government or partly it is owned by the government in case of joint stock companies or the government company. So just understand that concept. Okay, they both are not the same. Okay, so moving on to the meaning of this public limited companies. So the public limited company, it is a voluntary association. It is a voluntary association of members. It is voluntary association of members or private individuals. Okay, it is a voluntary, which is mostly they are the private individuals who contribute the share capital to the company. So that is they are the private individuals. So which is incorporated. So because of that, therefore has a separate legal existence. Legal identity is there, so separate legal existence is there. That's why we are saying it as a public limit, identifying this company as a public limited company. And another feature is the liability of the members are limited. So the liability of the members are limited in the sense that in the event of loss, they need not have to bear the burden of losses. Okay, if the unlimited liability, the owners, all the shareholders, they have to bear the burden of losses also. If that's a limited liability, that means the owners, they need not have to bear the burden of losses. Okay, that is the members of the liability of the members are limited. That is the meaning here. Okay, and most important, why we are saying it is a public limited company, because the shares are issued to the general public. So then it becomes a public limited company. See, for example, you can have is the Indian Oil Corporation. So Indian Oil Corporation, it is a public sector undertaking, but it is also registered under a public limited company, because the shares of Indian Oil Corporation are floated to the general public. Okay, then BPCL, SBI, and we also have Reliance Industries. Reliance Industries is a private sector undertaking whose shares are again floated to the general public. So then it becomes a Reliance Industries, TCS. Okay, hope now you are understanding. So these are all the government undertakings. But still, since their shares are floated to the general public, they are registered as a public limited company. And this Reliance, TCS, they are all come under the Reliance, TCS, Infosys. So they are all the private sector undertakings, but still they are their shares are also floated to the general public. Okay, so this is a public limited company. Then moving on to the next category is private limited companies. So private limited companies, so it is also a voluntary association of members of, there should be minimum two members to maximum of 50. Okay, and so their liability is also limited. Liability is limited. So the main difference here is shares are not floated to the general public. So the shares are transferred to its members, and not to the general public. So if it is floated to the issued to the general public, then that will be registered as a public limited company. So if the shares are within the members of the company, then it becomes a private limited company. So not to the general public. Okay. See some of the example, you are having the private limited company, for example, Flipkart, Ola, Carrot Lane. So they all comes under the private limited companies. Okay. And there are some companies which started as a private limited company, and over a period of time, they have issued their shares to the general public. So the companies like, for example, Zomato, Make My Trip. So these are all the companies. Initially, they started as a private and they have become public. Okay, now I think I can understand. See the reason why some of the companies, they don't want to transfer themselves to convert themselves into public limited companies. See, if you are converting yourself into a public limited company, you have to make your, you have to be listed, your company has to be listed in the stock exchange, and your account statement, the balance sheet, the financial statement has to be made public. So the people has to know, it has to be made public. So then that is one of the conditions. If you have to convert yourself from the private limited company to public limited company, periodically you have to inform, you have to make it public, the auditing position, the balance sheet of your company, the profit and loss statement of the company has to be made public. But if you don't want to do that, you can remain, then you can remain as a private limited company. There is no necessity for the private limited companies to make their financial statement public. Only the public limited companies, they are supposed to make their financial statement public. And the advantage of the public limited company is, by floating the shares to the general public, their share capital becomes, they get more and more amount of capital, isn't it? So that is the reason most of the companies, they expand their business, they want to expand their business. So they list their companies in the stock exchange, and they issue the shares to the general public. So initially they can be started as a private limited company, and over a period of time, they can become a public limited company. Okay, so this is the second category. Then the third one, what we have is the government companies. So the government companies, these companies are those in which at least the major share in the sense, at least 51% of the shareholding should be in the hands of the government. So the major ownership control should be in the hands of the government. So 51% of the shares, that is the major part, are held by either it is held by the central government or state government, or it can be held by both the central government as well as the state government. Okay, and this government company, it can be either registered as a public limited company or as a private limited company. So the government company can be registered either as a public limited company if they are floating the shares to the general public, then they can be registered as a public limited, or otherwise they can be registered as or only with the few private individuals with like a PP partnership, then it is a private limited company. But whatever it is, the major percentage of the share should be with the government. So, but the management remains with the government. In either case, the management remains with the control remains only with the government. In both cases. And these government companies are established based on the these articles of association and the memorandum of association. So the government, whereas the public limited company, they are all based on the statute. Okay, so the government companies are established based on articles of association and memorandum of association. Okay, so some of the examples we have of the government companies. Examples: Electronics Corporation of India, Limited, Bharat BEL, Bharat Electricals Limited, Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. So some of the examples of this government company. Okay. Hope the difference between public sector undertakings, public limited companies, government companies, and the private limited companies are clear to all of you. Sorry. Okay. So now these are all the structure of industries based on usage, based on ownership, based on enterprise, and based on the size of capital. Okay. The next part is the what are all the classification of industries. So the classification of industries. Meaning, what is the nature of that particular industry? So the first one, primary industry. So primary industry. So this industry, the first thing, the production is based on nature. The production is based on nature. So it is a nature-oriented industry than the manual. So that's why very little human effort is required. So example, agriculture. I mean, agriculture in the sense farming, fishery, forestry, horticulture, they all come under the category of. So these are all mostly depending on nature, isn't it? So it is nothing man-made here. So with that, we are making a business out of it. So that is a primary industry. And then come the second category, what we have is the genetic industry. See the structure of the industry, which I have explained just now, that is important for the 5 marks. Okay. It can be either totally together or any one particular structure. It will be asked for the 5 marks. And this classification of industries, it is each and every one of these industries can be asked for the 2 marks. Okay. So genetic industry, it is through, what do you say, created to the certain plants and species of plants and animals, they are all combined hybrid varieties of seeds and all we are seeing, isn't it? So that is a genetic industry. Okay. So that's why here in this, products are created through reproduction and multiplication of certain species of plants and animals. And next, it is done, mostly it is for profit. The products created are, the main motive is to earn profit. The products are sold for profit. So example, the plant nurseries, poultry, cattle breeding, So they all come under the genetic industry. Okay. Then the third classification what we have is the extractive industry. Anything that is extracted from the soil, extracted from water. So you are taking out, you're drawing out something from the soil, from the earth. So they all come under the category of extractive industry. So basically, the extractive industry is involved in different activities that lead to the extraction of raw materials, extraction of raw materials from earth. I mean, it can, you are extracting something even from air or water also. Okay. So example, you have the oil, metals, water. I mean, all these are like mining industry and all, isn't it? Metals, minerals, timber, extracting timber from forest. So they all come under the extractive industry. So basically the industry, when you talk about the industry, it is a mining industry, timber industry. So they all come under the extractive industry. And the next, the common one, what we have, the manufacturing industry. So the manufacturing industry, the main engaged in what is convert, we keep saying, what is production, what is manufacturing? That is converting the raw materials into finished products, either the consumer goods or the capital goods. Okay, so these industries are engaged in converting the, highlighted, these industries are engaged in converting the raw materials into finished products. So it can be either capital goods or consumer goods. With the help of machinery or labor. With the help of machinery or labor. Okay, so all these examples: textile industry, sugar industry, textiles, sugar, chemical industry. So they all come under the manufacturing industries. Okay, then the next type of industry is the construction industry. Construction of bridges, construction of dams, construction of buildings. So they are called as the construction industry. Okay, so these industry are engaged in construction of everything: buildings, bridges, roads, dams, etc. One main difference between other industry and construction industry is that in other, for example, the manufacturing industry, it is produced in one place and it is sold at the another place. But whereas the construction industry, wherever that construction is happening, the same thing it is produced, the same place it is also sold. So that is the difference with the construction industry with the other industry. Or in other words, the goods produced and so goods, in the sense, all these are goods: buildings, bridges, roads. That's a product of construction industry. Okay, goods produced and sold, that is erected, or I mean, all these are erected, isn't it? Buildings are all erected or sold at the same place. Whereas in other industries like manufacturing industries and all, goods are produced at one place but sold in another place. But it is here the same place. Okay. Then the last category is the service industry. So all those services, all the in the industries that engage themselves in the service activities. So industries that involve in service activities. So where there is no product, it's only a service. For example, hotel industry, tourism industry. If see anything, if it has to be called as an industry, it has to grow tremendously. The revenue from that particular activity should be, should be phenomenal. Then we categorize that as a industry. So it is a status to given for any activity to calling themselves as an industry. So entertainment industry, Bollywood is an industry now because of its revenue. So that's why it is now called as an entertainment industry. Okay. So these are all the various classification of industries. And as I mentioned, you will get this, any one of these for the 2 marks, and the structure of industries you might get for 5 marks. Okay. So the next topic, which I will take it in the next class, that is what is the nature of growth and the pattern of industrial development in our country. Okay. So if you find this video useful, please like, share, and also subscribe so that you will not miss any topics. So until my next class, take care. Bye-bye.